So not to be redundant or anything, I mean, you kind of hit on it saying that, you're going to have all these people in the fall and you're going to tell them what they're doing. But, for our chapter, we have elections in November. When exactly are you going to start instating this position?
I'm glad you asked that question because you're exactly right. We're hoping that all of our chapters will elect this position with their other officers in November to be installed soon after. And then these officers specifically will be invited to Indianapolis for that launch event in January. Great question.
And also that launch event too. Is that going to include just that member, or would it be like a member in the president or a member in the vice president or anything like that?
That launch event will be happening concurrently with two other events, the Duranian President Conference and the Recruitment Boot Camp.
Gotcha.
So in a sense, Theta Chi will be hosting 3 events in one weekend in Indianapolis.
Cool.
Good question.
Yeah, I got a question. I know Sacred Purpose is kind of like is unique to our creed, but did any other fraternities have, like, say, this position in their executive council that you kind of like went off of to see like how successful it is?
Yeah, to my knowledge, no.
Okay.
That no other Greek organization has elevated this level, somebody to this level of leadership to really concentrate on sacred purpose, the health, safety, and well-being of young men. There are lots of programs out there that have been used by not only fraternities and sororities, but communities and campuses all around America. And we thought that this issue, at least in Theta Chi, was transcended program.
Yeah.
Programs oftentimes have a shelf life of not very long and an effectiveness of not very good.
Yeah.
So we thought that we needed to create the structure to really make an impact at the human level, which is really where it matters.
I understand how it has to do with sacred purpose and the position and everything. Is there any way you can articulate on exactly the duties of the person will be, or are you waiting to enroll that in January?
No, we're certainly going to have more details coming forward. We've got a job description in a sense that's already been worked up and ready to roll. Let me talk kind of in a broader sense this afternoon. Really what we think is our national headquarters is in Indianapolis, and we have chapters in every corner of the United States. And so it's very difficult for us to care for people at a distance like that. So one of the things we recognize is that every campus and college and university has tremendous local resources in the community and on the campus itself. So one of the primary responsibilities of this leader will be to identify those resources and those professionals and engage in relationship, to cultivate that relationship, with really 2 results from that. First, it's for the benefit of the campus, because here we walk in saying, Theta Chi, we have a vested interest in sacred purpose and health and safety of students on this campus. We're here to support you. Put us to work. The second result, I think, is one where it's a bit selfish on our end, but we get, as we start to engage and lean into the ongoing conversation about these life issues, we know that our members will start to be able to take advantage of the resources that are there. And for me, that feels really good, because I can't, from the national level, from my seat, be there to care for people around the country, but we can create a network at the local level where that care can be had. And that's really so special for Theta Chi. So that's really where we start to do this work, not rolling out program, in a sense cultivating a network of resources that we can tap into and support.
I guess my question would be, with this creation of this new position, how is it really going to be implemented on the individual chapter level? So it seems not easy to create this new position. You mentioned how it's at the core and how we're really changing the actual ritual on a national level. But what is Nationals going to do to make sure that the individual chapters are really going to accept this huge change?
Yeah. Well, first let me be honest and say that this is a bold and courageous step forward for the fraternity, but it's going to be really hard, and we know that. It's going to take time. It's going to take hundreds and maybe thousands of hours of conversations and thought and listening and asking questions. We know that process got to take place. But we believe deeply, we know Theta Chi is a ritual-centric organization. We care very much about what the ritual says to our lives. So that's why we started there, because we think that when we get into the ritual, that it starts to kind of codify this sense of who we are. And it naturally starts to drive things that otherwise wouldn't have traction. If we just bolted something on, very short shelf life. But with a ritual, it starts to kind of express through us in a different way. We know that there are going to be lots of questions. And that's honestly, that's why we elevated this person to this level of leadership. We need dynamic leaders who care very deeply about this sacred purpose to kind of step forward, almost blindly, and trusting this process. And we're going to work really hard to equip them. And part of what they're going to be doing is pioneering in the chapter. But we think when they do it well, other people are behind them are going to say, I'm in next. It's my turn. I'm going to serve now. And that throughout the years, it's going to become more and more special. And literally 3 or 4 years from now, people won't say, what do you mean there hasn't been a vice president of health and safety since 1856? This won't be new then.
Yeah.
This is only new now. And it seems shocking, the kind of bold moves we're making. I think it invites us to ask the question of why we're doing it, and that's really easy. It is our sacred purpose. It's for one another. So the reason we're doing it, it's a slam dunk. Getting there, it's going to take some work. It's going to take some work on our end, and it's going to take some work on your end. But this is Theta Chi.
I'm not upset with the position at all. I think it's a great idea, but I don't think a lot of people will see it as it being a risk manager role.
Yeah, and that would be, they wouldn't fully understand if they do. Risk management is an important role in the fraternity in that it's a person that maintains a sense of standards related to our rules and policies in the fraternity. It protects the fraternity based on rules and policy. But I assert that rules and policy aren't enough. What we're doing now is relational. We're asking somebody to step in and elevate this sense of making sure everybody's okay. There's this interesting, in the continent of Africa, and all the different languages and dialects that are over there, it's very common in almost every single one of those languages. When they see each other on the street, the words that they say get literally translated into, I see you. That's a lot different than what we say here is, hey bro, how are you this morning? Good morning. To literally say, I see you. It's moving. And we really believe that we're moving beyond risk management, elevating somebody to the point where he's helping the chapter see one another. And that is Theta Chi.
So at the creation of this new position, what's going to be the role of the risk manager in the future?
Yeah, that's a great question because we've talked about how this is transcending risk manager and that responsibility. We're actually going to remove the risk management chairman position from our formal chapter structure. We're going to take those same responsibilities and transition it to the chapter president, who's ultimately responsible for everything that happens in our undergraduate chapters. Now, if he wants to utilize an assistant or a risk manager to help him to live out those responsibilities, that's great. This new position will not be taking on the responsibilities of any policy enforcement or any of those typical risk management responsibilities that we've seen in the past.
Yeah, I like the position, the idea. I see how it can like spread it out between the president and this guy, so it's not one person like the risk manager who's always focused at every single event on creating safety, and it can spread it out and the president can spread control to other people and make sure everybody is safe and well.
And what's going to happen is if this guy, this new vice president of health and safety, when he's kind of pumping along, what you're going to see is an attitude shift in everybody, where it's not just one person who needs to be the caregiver. It starts to become this brotherhood of caregivers. And that's really what we're so hoping for, is not just have one person in charge of caring, but to create a new culture, a new attitude within everybody, where we all care deeply. And we all see each other, we all recognize each other, we recognize when somebody might be struggling, when somebody might need a helping hand, and we're going to equip all of you to actually do something about that. That's the difference. To recognize is one thing, to step in effectively is another. But that's really where brotherhood and love and sacred purpose really is expressed. It's in a doing something piece.
So, like, what is your ideal person that would run for this candidacy?
Yeah.
Like, what kind of personality traits do they need to have? What like kind of leadership skills? What do you
Yeah.
imagine?
I think that's a great question. We think that because of the enormous pioneering responsibilities with this, that it needs to be somebody with some experience in the chapter. Not necessarily executive council experience, but significant experience within Theta Chi. Really at least a couple of semesters of membership as an initiated brother. It's got to be somebody that can effectively cultivate relationships with campus professionals, right? Somebody that can engage with them so that we can understand their resources and utilize those resources, and somebody that we can rely on to kind of inspire the chapters to go out and be an advocate within the campus and the Greek community. Those skill sets are really important. Creating and cultivating relationships with campus officials. And I think that there's a couple of other things I often talk about. One is just the ability to teach and inspire. Somebody that can stand up in chapter meeting and articulate ideas that can shift attitude, and that can be very practical ideas that can actually equip you to know how to help somebody when they need to be helped. It's got to have that teaching element, right? And I think that another piece to it, they've got to be more than somewhat, they've got to be organized.
Okay.
You know, because we're going to do some things, they're going to take some organization. So it's going to take some significant levels of leadership and commitment. And we know that. But we think that that's what sacred purpose is, and that's why that's what the number 3 ranking person needs. Not the newbie, but the guy that's been around a while.